I've gotten all these nine, no, not nine, sorry, 4, 8, 12 guys pause at the same point in time in their delivery. And that is as soon as the front foot has hit the ground, which we call this position front foot strike. And right when the foot hits the ground, right when the foot hits the ground, right when the foot hits the ground, and so on. So that's where all of these different guys are at this current time, is front foot strike position. We can kind of see that there are some universal things that every pitcher, no matter the size, what handed, arm slot, what it may be, that we want to try to get to some checkpoints. One is at front foot strike is the very first time that our hand, our throwing hand, has flipped up or the hand has gotten above the elbow. And at this point in time, we're looking for the ball to be facing the same direction our chest is. So for lefties, that'd be ball facing first base. Righty, that'd be balls facing third base. We're also looking for our glove to be about like percentage wise, depending on how big of a path your glove took. We're like 70-80% of the way with that glove in its finish. And as we can see here, every one of these guys' gloves is within its body, within their body, right? Within their body. Maybe the elbow's outside, but the glove is within the body. The glove is within the body. Another thing we can see is with a lot of these guys is that we can still see the baseball at front foot strike on their backside, on their backside, on their backside, backside. Still slightly on the backside with Cueto. Same with Charlie Morton down there. Another thing that we can see is belt buckles. I see a whole lot of belt buckles facing us, the target, the catcher. And in order for that to occur, we need the back hip to have been driven forward. All right, we need the back hip, the back hips to start to come forward. And in order for the back hip to come forward, we need to have driven off of our back foot. We need to have driven off our back foot through our big toe, through the big toe, through the big toe, through the big toe. We're not lifting the heel up off the ground. We're like folding the foot over. Imagining that our base of our foot has Velcro on it and we're stuck to another sticky side of Velcro. And we're going to peel our foot off by taking like the outside of our foot and peeling it forward, which then helps bring our knee in, which helps rotate our knee and our foot, and our hip then gets to go forward. So you kind of take that thought process and see how he's kind of peeling it off the ground, while thinking, keep my big toe on the ground so everything can fold over my big toe, over my big toe. And when it gets over the big toe, that's when we can start to see the back hip. And if we do that with Reggie, can't see the back foot as well. Okay, here we go. I can see it better here. He's trying to peel it off the ground. Peel it off the ground through what? Through that big toe. And here comes that back hip. Here comes that back hip. Here comes that back hip into front foot strike. Who else's foot can we see? Okay, we can see Ramon's. Same thing. He's trying to peel that foot off the ground, not lift the heel up, but he's trying to keep the heel on the ground for as long as possible. So then he can roll over the big toe, which then brings that back hip forward. Back hip starting to come forward. Back hip starting to come forward. Back hip starting to come forward. Keuchel, same thing. Peeling that back foot off the ground folding over the front toe, which brings that back hip forward. Chapman's one of the best at it. Boom. 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 All right. So on and so forth. Every one of these guys has their own delivery, their own leg lift, their own stride, but we can see how very similar that back foot drive process is. That's the movement we have to do with the back foot in order to get the shin, knee, thigh, and all the bones in there to move in a specific way that then pushes that back hip forward. That then pushes that back hip forward. Pushes that back hip forward. Okay? From there, we can see that the stride direction is very different from one another, right? Like we have like Sanchez, Ramon, Familia, all very similar positions with their stride. And then you got guys like Crawford, Chapman, Keuchel, who are kind of more slightly like this front foot's going towards like and lined up with like their back foot's toes, where like Sanchez, Ramon, and Familia's front foot is lined up with like their back foot's heel. And then you got guys who are even more extreme than that, where like Arrieta, Nathan Evaldi, Joe Kelly, Johnny Cueto, and Charlie Morton, where their front foot is striding in front of their back foot's front toe. So for the righties, third base side of their front or the back toe. So what's going to happen now, because each of these guys have all gotten the back hip to come through, all of their upper bodies are relatively in very similar positions, but their front feet, their front feet are all in different spots. Like these three, same spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, same spot. And then, excuse me, these guys in their own spots. So like class 1, class 2, and then class 3, if we call it that. So what we have to think about now is all of the rotational energy of that back hip coming forward and this front hip opening up. That's rotation energy. All of the energy of that back foot driving us forward into that stride, into front foot strike, driving energy back from the backside to the front side, driving energy from the backside to the front side, driving energy from the backside to the front side. That's a linear energy. So we need to take that linear energy and that rotational energy that our lower half has gone through, and now we need to send it up to our upper half as quickly as we can, so that way as our upper half is going through its rotational energy, it can be fed that lower half's energy. So then the upper half can work even faster, even smoother, even more stress-free on the arm to produce maximum amount of power. So if we watch the guys that have the knee, or the stride rather, in the very same position, so Sanchez, Ramon, and Familia, if we watch, their knee is not going to move hardly at all to the glove side, to the glove side. It's just going to pretty much lock out, which allows that back shoulder to come forward, which allows that, which then allows the back shoulder to come forward. Which allows the back shoulder to come forward. Now you have the guys where the knee is slightly like across the body or in front of the body, like the Crawford. We will see as he rotates, the knee will slightly roll out, but then it'll quickly stop and lock out the same way these legs locked out. So Crawford is going to start to swivel out a little bit, and now it's not going to swivel no more. And it's going to just lock out so the back shoulder can rotate energy down and out in front the same way. So Keuchel, we said, was in the same similar situation. We'll see his front knee slightly roll out. There's that slight roll out from there to there, but now it's going to lock out the rest of the way. Boom, 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 boom. We might see a slight little roll out here on Lester. Nope, it just held the whole time until it locked out. Chapman is probably not going to roll out at all. It's going to just lock out from there. Boom. Oh, little roll out, but then locked out from there. Okay, now the guys that have the far stride across their body, who are what people would say they're striding across their body or throwing across their body. Watching what the knee does there, just stays in place. It's just locking out, and then his body comes through that leg or around that leg. Same thing, locking out, and then the body's coming around that leg or through the leg. Joe Kelly, just locking out, and then coming through that leg or around that leg. Cueto is just staying. Oh, that doesn't go much further. Sorry. Wish I would have known that. Charlie Morton doesn't go anywhere, just locks out. So you can rotate around it or through it. Okay, so with those thoughts in mind about the things we're looking for at front foot strike and what that then allows our body to do after while we throw the baseball, we will then get you guys into your front foot, or show you what you guys look like at your front foot strike position after one more time of getting to see again what these positions look like at front foot strike, which again is the moment that front leg or your stride leg, your leg lift leg makes contact with the ground. So there's front foot strike again. Glove by body. Looking to have arm back behind head, if not even to behind our back. We're looking to see belt buckle, and most importantly, that back hip coming forward or through. The reason it's come forward or through is because the back foot has turned over and rotated and driven away or peeled away from the pitching rubber. And then we want to make sure that that front knee, when it lands, the position it's in, depending on where the front foot lands, if it's straight in front, like tier 1 over here, like we said, then it just locks out. Locks out. If it's in like the tier but next to that, then it can roll out a little bit, but then it's got to lock out from there. And we notice that it always locked out and stopped moving and stabilized. It rolled a little bit, It rolled a little bit, then it stabilized. And look, the ball still hasn't even came from behind his head yet. By the time it stabilized, and now it's just locking out, locking out, locking out. Or if we're way across our body, we have to just straight lock it out from there and really make sure that we can get that back hip to keep continuing to come through. Keep continuing to come through. It's a little fun tongue twister. Make sure it keeps coming through. Make sure the back hip keeps coming through if we're getting our stride across our body. Again, there's nothing wrong with throwing across our body. We just got to make sure that that hip can keep coming through. And then we can see now all of us and what our bodies look like from the front view here at front foot strike. So let's just take a moment, find where you're at, see what your body is looking like at front foot strike, and run through some of those checkpoints we just talked about that we want to see at front foot strike. What we can see as a team, we're doing a pretty good job of having this glove a little far away from our body still, but as a team, it's in a pretty darn good location at front foot strike. Okay. What we can see is we have some guys that are hip, knee, foot in a pretty good alignment, hip, knee, foot in a pretty good alignment, hip, knee, foot in a pretty good alignment, hip, knee, foot in a pretty good alignment. We have a thrown across our body, and hip, knee, foot is in a pretty good alignment for it being across the body. Okay, then we can also see how we got some front leg has not really rotated. Front leg has not fully rotated. And we have a little bit of that here as well. And maybe potentially a little bit of that knee not rotating enough at front foot strike. We then go and say, can we see the throwing arm? And we can say no, so that means that the back shoulder has not begun to rotate forward. We can see the back throwing arm, so we know that the back shoulder has started to rotate. We can slightly start to see it wanting to come through, which means the back shoulder is wanting to start to rotate. We can see the forearm back here, knowing the back shoulder has started to rotate. With throwing across the body, we got a slight illusion, so we can't truly confirm where that arm is at because so much of your body is across itself. Another guy, we can see that the back shoulder is starting to come through before that front foot has hit the ground. Back here, we can see it's nice and loaded behind our head. That's good. We can see here that it's right behind the head. We're good. And we can see here that the arm is starting to come through, meaning that back shoulder is starting to want to rotate forward before this front foot got into the ground. So we need to get front foot strike, then rotate shoulders. Front foot strike, then rotate the throw. We can see belt buckle and that back hip wanting to come through. If we were wearing pants, we could see that's where the belt buckle would be. We can also see that's where back hip is coming through. Would not be able to see those because this front hip has not begun to rotate open. This knee has not begun to rotate open yet, which is preventing everything from the backside coming through. We would be able to see belt buckle, and we could probably assume that's your back hip right there. That's also coming through. Belt buckle is in alignment of where your stride is going, but not quite as much to the target. About to sneeze, hold on. Phew. Ooh, excuse me. Okay. And then belt buckle is kind of just wants to be coming towards us, but it's kind of just more over towards on deck batter for the third base dugout. Over here, we can see that the belt buckle is going into third base dugout, has not rotated yet. We cannot see the back hip. Dark sweatpants make it hard to tell this, but going off of some context clues, we could say your belt's about right here. So which angle is it? It's tough to tell. We'll have to be able to look at the side view to have a better idea of that. We look at this, and we can say that if we look at where the logo is at on your shorts, being on this angle, we could say that the belt buckle will be about right here, probably also going in the direction that this knee is, which means maybe this back hip has begun to come through a little bit, but it also is, again, it's hard to tell with the no tuck and black shorts. We can see front foot is good with its connection into the ground, into the ground, into the ground as well. See over here, into the ground, into the ground, into the ground is good. Come to here, we can see its inside foot rolling into the full foot. Inside of the foot, rolling into the full foot. Over here, clean into the mound, clean in there, clean into foot strike. Boom, same here, clean into there. And you can see a little wobble. We can probably have to zoom in a little bit extra. Not there, but on here. And we can see that we're hitting inside the foot first. Then the whole foot hits. See, we're hitting inside the foot first. Then the whole foot hits. So if we took you to the very first moment of when your foot hits the ground, it's there. Which then we compare that with here. And you two guys are very similar in how your front leg wants to rotate, extend, swivel into its foot strike position. All right, we look over, look over here, and we can see slightly of the same thing. Okay, if we zoom in for you, okay, we watch that front foot. Inside part of the foot's hitting first, inside, then the whole foot. Inside, then the whole foot. So 1, 2, and 3 are guys that need to do some work on getting that front leg familiar with how to get itself knee rotated, foot swiveled more, so we can land on a flat foot. Okay, kind of similar position as well here. You can see that inside of the toes, inside of the big toe, then the inside of the foot, then the whole foot. So we're just a little late getting knee turned around more, knee rotated more, knee swiveled more, knee opened up more, however you want to think about it, however you like to think about it, to help get this foot more time to get into this position, this angle, so it can match the mound a little bit better. So that way we don't have this and then that. That's going to cause a little bit of instability in our knee. You can see how that knee swivels and rolls because of how we're kind of hitting the ground. And then we can even see after that, the heel kind of slides out from underneath us on that front foot there. Hit, swivel. Now it's firmly in the ground, and the ball's already, if not out, very close to being out of our glove by that time. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are guys that are going to be thinking about needing to work on. And also here a little bit too, hitting a lot of the inside of the foot because that knee's not opening up, rotating, swiveling quite enough at front foot strike for us to be able to land stable. So then there's that swivel in that knee, big time swivel in that knee, swivel in that knee. That knee needs to be stable and locking out so we can send our power up to our throw. And by the time it does get stable, we can see that the ball's nearly out. So it's a little late on that. So another guy, we're going to learn what this angle of this mound is like so that our foot can be better prepared to know how to land on the mound. All right, so now that we got all of your guys' videos playing here, looping through, we'll be able to see what's going on in our delivery even while I'm discussing one person's video. You can hear what's going on in his video and relate that then to your video. All right? Learn from your other teammates so that way you can benefit from it as well. So what we'll do is we will start down here and we'll work our way through the bottom row and then we'll get to the top row. So starting here, we talked about that turn right there with the upper body, right? We said that if we feel comfortable with our shoulders more in this type of position, let's understand what our shoulders are going to do after that position. Because if we start here and we turn them here, just to get them back to here, this movement right here is a wasted movement with the shoulders. And like we said, now that we're on this mound, we're trying to make everything as efficient as possible, and less movements are easier to execute repeatedly. So if it's a movement that does not need to happen, meaning it serves no value, we can think about looking to eliminate it. So let's just start with the shoulders a little bit more closed at the set position, like right here, and just keep them there as we lift that leg up. Because we don't need to spin the shoulders, spin the shoulders, spin the shoulders to raise the leg. Because when you do spin the shoulders, what else are we spinning? Our hips. And now our back of our body quite literally is facing the target. So that means either we're going to fall completely backwards or we're just going to open completely up. You're probably not going to fall backwards because your body would not allow that. So now we're just going to completely open up. Completely open up. So now what we got to hope is that now that we've completely opened up, that we don't continue to open up, but yet we go towards our target. So that's going to be a force that we're going to have to fight against to make sure that we don't continue to go from here, out to here, from here, where it's opening up to quickly out to here. If that's the case, we're losing energy this direction when it needs to be going this direction. So let's see if we can fight that off and take our energy now straight to the target, which we can see we're trying to, but we can see what has gotten outside of our body very quickly already. That's our glove. Why is that? Because the glove was way behind us, and then it swings out in front of us, and continues to swing out in front of us very quickly, very quickly, very quickly. Now it's outside of us, and it can't stop going out there until an outside force, stops it. What's the outside force going to be? It's going to be your shoulder. Stops it from going out, but now that shoulder has that energy that was going out. So what's that shoulder going to want to do now? Go out. And that's why at front foot strike, your front shoulder is opening up, which is bringing that back shoulder through early. I mean, you see at all those videos that we saw in the beginning of those big leaguers from the front view, we could barely see their jersey's logo. And here we can see all of Tool. We can see a couple letters of 5, and we can read almost all of baseball here. And the only reason that is because the glove is getting outside of our body very quickly, which then gets stopped from going out. It gets stopped from going out by the shoulder, but then the shoulder takes its energy and it goes out, which then pulls the back shoulder forward early. Now our shoulders are open at front foot strike, which then results in less upper lower half separation or shoulder hip separation, one facing one way, one facing the other, which then reduces our power. So now we don't have as much whip going through our body. We don't have as much energy flowing through our body, which now our arm has to do more work and results in a less powerful throw than what we could potentially achieve. We can also see that as we're trying to throw, we're trying to lock that leg out, but we just can't quite do it. And we can see how much it then bends, and that's just loss of energy. We want to make sure we really lock that leg out once we get into front foot strikes, so that way all the power that goes from the back leg into the front leg can then get shot up the body into the arm. Your body does it, wants to do it right there, and then it just loses it, just a little bit. It's trying to, and then it's just, can't. It's close, though. The body knows that it should do it. The body wants to do it. It just, right now, it can't do it. Is it a hamstring flexibility thing where we just can't keep this straight while we bend down more through our rotation? Could be. Could very easily be a flexibility thing. Is it a strength thing? Is it our leg muscles here, our hamstrings, our quads, our glutes, our calves, are they just not strong enough to hold in a straighter line as all of this energy goes down, 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 and that's why it bends? Could be. Could be a combo of both. Could be that we're just now realizing how much more energy is going to be going down once we're on this type of mound, and how much more challenging that process of locking that leg out is going to become. Could be that as well. So those are things that we're going to want to be thinking about for our deliveries, getting rid of that early spin, twirl, twist with that upper body, so that way that glove doesn't want to get out so early, so that way our front shoulder doesn't open up early, so that way at front foot strike our shoulders aren't starting to come through already early. All right, so now that his has gone through, everyone should be thinking about things they just heard and how that could then be applied to what you're seeing in your video. Are you doing a movement during your leg lift that is going to create difficulty later on in your delivery? Is your glove, is your front shoulder an issue for you, like we just learned, like we just saw, like we just heard in, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name, but I'm going to assume it's Gallagher, in Gallagher's breakdown there, okay? Learn from what he just learned, and how can that be applied to you? What is your front leg doing through release? Is it locking out and staying locked out? Is it getting into a bend and never locking out? Is it locking out after the ball's out of your hand? Is it locking out while the ball is still in your hand, so that way the energy is actually going up into that throw? thinking about these different things and how that can be applied to your video. So we get to the next guy then. All right, so we see a slight little hunch here. Slight little hunch in the set position, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's potentially not the most powerful position for you to be in, considering the movements we're going to do after this position. But we'll get into the leg lift, and we can see what's the whole body wanting to do. It's kind of wanting to go up. It's kind of wanting to go up. And we know that by if we look at the lettering on your shirt here in relation to the netting in the background, as you're lifting your leg, we're gaining elevation. Okay. The reason I said that we may want to be taller is so that we don't feel like we need to get up more. Okay. Or are you getting up simply because this back knee is just straightening out? Back knee is straightening out. Back knee is straightening out during leg lift. All right. I'm not sure because I'm not in that head of yours. So what we want to be thinking about is becoming aware of I am hunched over, meaning my head is not as tall as it could be if I was standing upright. As I lift my leg, my back knee loses some of the bend that it had. My body goes up, but the hunch still remains. As I go out, the hunch still remains. As I get into front foot strike, my front foot is not able to get rotated into a good connection with the ground. My front knee has not really rotated at all. Excuse me, that front knee has barely rotated by the time that first contact with the ground. Then front foot fully gets in the ground, and we can see that kneecap is still in alignment over here more than it is in alignment to the target. And because of how much that hip, knee, foot is in that angled position, specifically here, it's going to be difficult for the back hip to come through. It's going to be difficult for the back shoulder to come through with this knee in this type of position here on your front leg. And that's why then as we throw, that knee swivels all the way out to here before it stops moving. Now the knee is stable. But we can see the ball's already out of the hand. So by the time our front leg got stable and secured all the power that we sent from the back leg into that front leg, that power we use to amplify our upper body's rotation. However, by the time you stabilized it to be able to send it up to our upper body to rotate with, the upper body has already almost finished its rotation. And it definitely has finished its rotation in relation to the ball still being in the hand. So that means all of the lower body power that we're trying to produce cannot actually be added to the upper body's rotation. And that is probably why this glove gets so yanky. We kind of get a little yanky. Ugh. Just because we're trying to help get this knee in a position, hopefully before this ball gets out, so then we can try to start to get that energy to go forward. But we can just see there's so much going around. We're just kind of going out to the side when we're throwing this baseball. The energy is not as much going forward. There's not as much energy going down and out. We're just kind of going around. We're kind of getting outside of that baseball. We're kind of getting to the side of it. We're just slipping a little bit. There's a lot of different ways to think about it, but the main reason that's occurring up top is because of this front leg position at foot strike, being knee going this way, when your body can't stabilize it until this gets more into this type of position. So we need to land in this more of this type of position. But everything else that comes through after that is real well. Like your body knows how to lock out that leg. Your body knows how to get the hip to keep coming through. We just need to give the back hip better spacing to come through more aggressively, more violently. And the way we do that is by, at front foot strike, making sure that we get this front knee to rotate with the foot. We're just not getting this knee to rotate enough to get more over in this area, with kneecap facing more of our area. So that way the back hip can come straight forward instead of it having to kind of swoop around, which then makes the upper body swoop around. And we just miss out on some power. We miss out on some spin opportunity. We miss out on some extra movement then. That means a little command we might be getting messed with. So we just got to think about that front leg getting more rotated. So again, same thing with all these guys up here that are over here hearing what we just learned, and what and how can that apply to you in your delivery, right? We're saying this was another knee guy. This was another knee guy at front foot strike. Who else did we say? I can't quite remember off the top. All right, but thinking about that with our knees, are you seeing your front foot hit the ground and that knee not have to swivel outwards before everything keeps coming through? Or does your knee hit a position and then it rolls out to your glove side as your upper body is rotating? And if that's the case, we're losing power. We need to learn how to rotate our front leg, our front knee, our front hip, our front foot, front shin. All right, so we got a good leg lift in height terms, in angle terms, but we can just kind of see how we lift it up and we're just kind of there, we're just not really doing anything, right? So we've sacrificed a lot of our front legs elevation, and we've sacrificed a lot of our time to get to this position, yet our body has not traveled or been able to gain any ground towards our target. That would be a lot easier to be seen from the side view when we get there. But something for us to be thinking about is, guys are on base. If we're slow here and we're just up, down, and before our body starts to generate any type of momentum, or before we start to use any type of our strength and rotation and our drive, is just opportunity for that guy to be getting going on the base paths. So we need to be thinking about, as that leg is coming up, like right when it's here, we need to start feeling those hips drifting forward. We need to start gaining some momentum, so that way the leg can come up to here as our body has now achieved momentum. So then as the leg starts to come down, that can help accelerate some of that momentum. So then when the back knee starts to really load, we're a lot deeper into that sit. And instead of that knee going over the toe so much, I think we'll be able to sit more into it here. I think we'll be able to sit deeper into that hip, because your body knows how to kind of sit into it there. Oops. Your body knows how to sit into it there, sit into it there, sit into it there. But I think we can sit so much deeper into that and create so much more power if our body has some momentum going down the mound right now, or going towards us right now. So then as a leg comes down, we can start to sit into it. So then when your back knee starts to sit, we're getting even deeper. All right. Hopefully that's making sense to you from this perspective, because it appears that your front leg is a very heavy takeover of getting myself going. Your body doesn't really want to start going to the target with any part of the back side. It seems to really want to get going with this front leg, with kind of swooping out, which we can certainly and definitely use that front leg in this type of manner to help create rotational energy, to help accelerate and bring that backside through with us. I just fear that it's so soon that we're doing that, that's kind of what creates this heel to come off the ground kind of early, and it kind of goes up, 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 before it ever comes and drives forward. Because it doesn't really start to go forward until after this front foot's in the ground, then it's starting to come forward. We can really see how much that back hip comes forward after, but it's just a little late coming through. This will be also something that'll be easier to see from this side view and piece together. But I think if we then work backwards and say, we don't want the heel to be coming off the ground as early, as quick, as straight up, 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 up. And we want it to be staying in the ground longer so we can drive through the big toe to us and not have it just kind of up, 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 up. And now we've lost kind of the weight on that foot to drive away from the rubber at the last second. And that kind of prevents the hips from rotating as much as they could at front foot strike, and specifically that back hip from starting to come through like it does there. It doesn't start to come through until we see the upper body start to really rotate. So if we were able to get that momentum through the top of the leg lift here, instead of being up, 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 down, 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 to about halfway of a leg lift height before we even start to load the back leg. And now we start to go forward, but we're only going forward really because that front leg is so far out in front of us now, out in front of us now, out in front of us now, that it's difficult for us to have the time to drive off that back leg before this front leg, which is rotating so quickly, boom, gets into the ground just a little sooner than the front leg needed, or I'm sorry, than the back leg needed to complete its drive process. So I think with extra momentum in the beginning, we'll be able to sit a little deeper. And if we're sitting deeper in the hip, that'll have more weight back here, which will help keep the heel in the ground longer. And if the heel stays in the ground longer, we'll be able to complete the drive process maybe a little bit sooner, which will help get everything rotated a little bit further at front foot strike, helping us get a little bit more upper, lower half separation or hip to shoulder separation. But the upper body is in a fantastic position at that front foot strike, regardless of what the lower body looks like, which is already a very good position. We're just talking about some extra timing things here to create some better power, better direction. But the upper body is getting to a good finish here. We can see that front shoulder is fighting to stay in, which is then helping us be able to rotate more, better out in front, out in front, out in front rotation seems to be better than what we have seen with some of the other guys so far. However, what we will notice is as we finish this rotation, here's your shoulder finish, and then boom, the kind of foot just falls over here, kind of just bam. And the hips are not really that much more rotated beyond its initial finish here. We can see how the hips kind of just stop rotating. Hips kind of just stop rotating. We want to think about continuously like letting those hips turn over. And that's just going to be more of incentivizing ourselves to throw downhill, continue to rotate that back hip down and through. And a good example of that we've seen so far of that type of movement would be this back hip coming down and through more. He kind of pulls up at the end, which doesn't allow it to keep going, but that kind of thought process of let it keep going around a little bit more. But everything else, we're moving very well. We just are just talking about how we're creating more power. We're going to get more sit. We're going to get more drive. We're going to get more power, more energy, which will just help fuel everything else that we already do well up here to have more power to do it with, more strength, more explosiveness to do it with. Okay. Next guy. So you can kind of see that little body kind of like, body's dipping back a little bit, kind of hunching back a little bit. And we're kind of doing that to get like this extra leg lift here, extra height on the leg lift, extra height on the leg lift. I'm all about good high leg lift, but if it's coming at the sacrifice of some of our posture, we may want to think about like reducing it to this height, so that way we don't hit this little extra in there, because if that is different with timing, angle, direction at all, that's going to make all these other different movements here slightly different. And now that's just a timing issue that we could potentially look to completely eliminate. So is it something that we need to get rid of? No, but something for you definitely to think about. Okay. As we get ourselves going, we can see that we're getting the hip to want to go forward. And then it does go forward. It wants to go forward. And then we do finally get to go forward. Is that because we kind of had this little hunch that we kind of then got to stabilize? Maybe. We can also see how much extra action's going on in that back leg in terms of its angle, its position, its bend during that leg lift, right? It's kind of getting a little extended. Then that knee, the knee's kind of bending in, or it's kind of folding in, it's collapsing forward, going towards third. However you like to think of that right there, kind of little bit there. And then it kind of continues to go then towards third a little bit, which isn't an issue, but these are all just little tiny directional things that if we can stabilize it at and before front foot strike, we're good and gravy. So now we go and boom, like we were talking about before, we're a guy, as we mentioned earlier, front leg is not quite rotating enough, specifically the knee, because now as we go to throw, it's got to get to here before it does get stable, but we can see how much the upper body has rotated by that time. The ball is nearly out of the hand. Now the ball is out of the hand, and now we're locking that leg out-ish. Okay, and that's why there's that jolt of energy at the end of your throw that takes you straight to the target. As opposed to just rotating through your release, your body still wants to go forward. At the end, there's just that little there. And that's just because everything with the backside leg driving forward was just late, because we get here, boom, haven't really gotten to drive that backside forward. Now as you're trying to drive the backside forward, this knee is also swiveling out, so that forward energy is more going kind of this way now. You can kind of see how that influences the head. You can also see how it kind of influences where the shoulder wants to go, where that shoulder wants to go, the shoulder wants to go. We can see front shoulder, front knee kind of together in that swivel outside of the body, outside of the body. So then we can see that knee has swiveled so much that even the hips as a whole have almost gone from this position to slightly to your arm side as you're rotating from arm side to glove side. So there's kind of a lot of contradictory movements going on in your body here as we're trying to get that ball to come out of our hand. So we just need to kind of think about cleaning up our leg lift a little bit. And then most importantly, we got to get front leg to rotate. We got to learn how to rotate this front leg at front foot strike and not have it be in this position. Because if it is in this position, even though we may be great with our upper body at front foot strike, this lower body position is going to swivel it. Now the ball's out. Now we're stabilizing it-ish. Okay. Okay, so we'll go over here. Top of the leg lift. We got a good high leg lift. And see, as we're coming out of that, we're trying to gain ground. We're trying to gain some momentum. One thing I would recommend is that we try to start getting ourselves going to our target for that leg gets all the way to the top. Because now it's at the top. Now it's coming down. And now we're trying to get going out. And we're just losing that ability to gain some ground a little bit earlier in the delivery to reduce our time to the plate, help get us a little bit more athletic, get us a little bit more mobile. So thinking as our knee is getting to about like this height right here, start feeling that back hip, drive that front hip forward. Start feeling that front hip start to fall forward or glide forward. So that way, as it's lifting up this rest of the way, we've started to create a little bit of momentum already. Because then we can take that momentum, use our sit to create more momentum, which will then increase our drive and rotation. And we can see you're one of the guys on the team that does a pretty darn good job. Really good job of getting this front leg into a good position that is going to be able to be stable. Now, do you stabilize it? We'll see. But this position here shows great potential to be strong and stable. One thing we can see if we zoom in on that back foot and we go back in time, the back foot heel is staying on the ground well. It's staying connected to the ground for a long time. We're trying to drive through that big toe. We're starting that process of the drive. We're starting to want to drive through that big toe, but we can see how that front foot just kind of, boom, hits the ground before that back foot gets to really drive and turn over. Now, boom, it really turns over. Now the hips really get to come through, but we can see that the upper body has also came through at that point in time. So how would we be able to better get that back foot to turn over more completely than the front foot hits the ground, or get it turned over to this position as this is getting into the ground? Well, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to do that if we have a little bit more energy going to the target, because we will feel like we should start driving a little bit sooner, because our body will be a little bit further from our back foot, a little bit further from the rubber, a little bit quicker in our delivery than normal, because we've already gotten momentum going to the target a little bit sooner than we normally do. So as this leg's coming up, if we can think, start getting my hips to start slowly drifting down the mound now, so then my leg gets up the rest of the way. So as my leg's coming down, that momentum starts to speed up a little bit. Now I start to sit into my back hip. That momentum speeds up even more, meaning now my hips aren't whatever distance they are from the rubber right now, but they're 2 inches further to us than they are. You're closer to us. So that way now the back foot will start to say, hey, I should start to drive now, instead of the back foot saying I should start to drive now. So that way, instead of the back foot driving foot in the ground there, the back foot would drive the foot into the ground there or there, creating a lot more power potential for your body that wants to do this upper lower half separation really, really well, right? We're getting the rotational part of upper lower half separation really good. I just feel like we're missing out on a little bit of the drive to get us going to our target a little better. And another reason I think that is it gets reinforced here with how much our glove side kind of yanks and pulls us open, and we fall off to the mound so aggressively and so hard, I think is because the fact that we didn't get that drive from the back leg, getting our energy coming to us as much as your body anticipates. So then your upper body's like, all right, well, the lower body only sent me 90% power. I was expecting 100. So that means my upper body can't just work at 100. It needs to work at 110 to make up for that lack of energy from the lower half. The only way the upper body can create extra energy, or how it perceives it can create extra energy while it's in movement like we are when we're throwing, is to just take that front side arm, that glove side arm, and just yank it and peel that front side open and try to spin our upper body, or try to rotate, fling our upper body around as fast as we can, which may move it faster, but it's not faster in the direction or the pattern that we need it to be to influence velocity on the throw. So I think we'll be able to clean up how hard and aggressively we're kind of falling off, and we're just missing out on a little bit of that potential to come through the baseball a little bit more, instead of getting outside that baseball a little bit at release, instead of going through the baseball at release. But all in all, a lot of good things are going on with the body here. We just need to get some of the timing down so that the backside fires better in a linear direction to us, in a linear power fashion. So that way, maybe that'll help keep the front glove shoulder and the glove itself a little bit more under control, so it doesn't want to open up, open up, open up as we're getting into front foot strike, but it want to be more in a closed position or neutral position at front foot strike instead of an open position at front foot strike. But all in all, we're very close here. Next. So we got some rhythm in the hands with the leg lift, keeping us relaxed. Leg lifts at a good height. One thing I would say is we kind of see how much the hips are kind of twirling, rotating back, curling, however you might like to think about it to get this leg up. All right. There's a lot of kind of where we can see the back seam of your pants. Could this be the reason that we stride also in this direction? It could be. We set an angle early and our body just wants to stay with that angle. That could be an influencer. There's definitely many. All right. And like you heard earlier, there's nothing wrong with throwing across your body as long as we're able to check off a couple key important things along the way. But if you are wondering maybe why you throw so much across your body, this leg lift style of how your hips are kind of set and this is now straight to my hips, even though my back leg says this is straight to my target. Because and as we come out of it, we kind of hold that angle, which is great to hold it closed. It's just kind of a lot closed. Plus, you're also a guy who likes to kind of drop and then extend that front leg out. So now you got even more body weight out here and an angle that's already set out there. So you got a lot of things early in your delivery that are going to influence where you want to stride. So those are kind of explanations of why your leg gets really far across your body, because now we can see that all that weight's out here. This back knee is going to start to go out this way. We can see that the heel is going to start to lose connection with the ground pretty early. So now all that energy wants to continue to go in this direction. And then we just kind of put it down right there. But again, nothing wrong with throwing across your body as long as we can go through those checkpoints we heard earlier in the big league videos. And we can see that belt buckle's coming through. We know the back hip wants to come through, but can it continue to come through as we throw? And yes, it is, right? So your body has no problem throwing across your body. Your body is throwing across your body with a very, in my opinion, well-moving lower half. And you're throwing across your body with a knee that does not need to really swivel out all that much. I mean, you can see there's a little bit there, right? There's a little bit there. There's a little bit there. But it's able to find itself eventually and start to lock out. So now we just got to think about, boom, foot gets in the ground. Let's think about getting the knee just a little bit more rotated so that way it doesn't need to swivel to here before it locks out. But it can be hitting there and then locking out very quickly. That'll send up more power to our upper body in time to be able to be used with our throw. But everything else with the glove being a great finished position here, keeping that front shoulder in. All right, so over here thinking about, this is a good example to be looking at it, how this front shoulder stays in. So that way when we rotate, we're able to rotate more, even more. Wah. Even for a guy that's across his body, he's still able to get a lot out in front really well through release. So another guy that's got a lot of good things happening. I say just the biggest thing is just thinking about this knee just being a little bit more rotated. Just being a little bit more rotated at front foot strike, and then just thinking, put a lot of mental focus into what does my knee feel like when I hit the ground, and do I feel this swivel? Do I feel the knee doing this, doing that? that? Do I feel this knee rolling outwards as I'm trying to throw? And once we can start to feel that occurring, now we can just preemptively anticipate it and then put the knee in a better position to hit it and just be super still with that knee. Have a little bit more control over it. You pair that with what we already do, and we're going to be piecing together a very clean delivery. Next. Oops, don't need the internet. Okay. So one of the things that we talked about was set position and making sure that we understand how we start in a position is going to dictate what we do out of that position. And we said how this foot's way back here is going to make a couple options open up for us. One, it's going to lead to the ability to us to have to kind of exactly what you're doing there, how the knees have to kind of bend, because we got to kind of swoop it up. We're going to have to swoop it up. We're going to have to swoop up that leg from back there. And now if we're swooping it up, more times than not, after a swoop up is going to be a fall down. And you're kind of a swoop up, fall down kind of guy, okay? Which there's nothing wrong with being like this low to the ground in our delivery. There's just a lot of things that are going to happen that are going to be probably pretty difficult for someone of your age, your size, your strength, and just your overall athleticism. I'm not saying that you're not an athletic kid, but just the difference between an athletic 13-year-old and an athletic like 28-year-old, right? There's a big difference in that. So what we'll see is as we kind of go through this tallish position with the shoulders, but I kind of have this posture here with my lower body kind of being slightly open and behind. I'm going to then kind of have to swoop that up. And now I'm kind of be falling down from here, at least. We'll be able to tell better on the side view, but from here, it seems like we're falling down a lot more than we're coming out. So that means we don't have maybe as much momentum to the target as we would like, even though we may have loaded ourselves into a very strong position with our backside leg. We may feel super, super strong here, but we have no momentum. So all you're going to be able to really use, if this view is accurate to what we're talking about, and like I said, we'll be able to tell better from the side view, but if it is in fact a lot more down than it is out, that means we're not able to use momentum plus our power to create the throw. Instead, we're only going to be using just power. So we're leaving out the opportunity to create extra something on our throw by being a guy that goes a lot more down than down and out at a little bit more of a semi-equalish rate in the beginning. But we'll continue on and see that then we get into front foot strike. And what we can notice is that the front leg, although it is very far down the mound, it doesn't seem like the back foot has really driven off the rubber. It's just kind of, we can try to zoom in a little bit more there. The heel stays on the ground for a good amount of time, but we can see that the whole foot as a whole, and we watch, just kind of starts to fold inwards. See how this is kind of folding inwards, folding inwards, folding inwards? And then we get that front foot to hit the ground. Boom. And that then kind of leads us then to this leg being in this position here where the knee we can see is kind of in the same line as the back hip, which means it's going to be pretty difficult to expect the back hip to keep coming through and this knee not to want to roll out. But you may be able to do it, and we're going to see here in a second. But what we can also see is, where is this glove at? We're another guy that this glove is super far away from our body early, and it stays far away from our body for a long period of time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if it's far away from our body and now it's getting outside of ourselves, there's some potential issues that could come along with it. But we can see the glove wants to stay there. The glove doesn't want to keep peeling out. It wants to hold where it's at, but it kind of just naturally kind of keeps slipping ever so slightly as you're trying to throw the ball. It's just slipping ever so slightly, ever so slightly. What we want to be thinking about first and foremost is we can see that once this foot does hit the ground, boom, this position here with the kneecap is trying to be to us, but the angle from the hip to the knee is just too much inside of our body for your body to keep it there. And we'll be able to see as we go to throw how it rolls out. Now it's in a stable position, which is awesome, but we can see how much our upper body's already rotated. Now the ball's coming out very soon after that. We have that clean looking finish with that front leg locking out well. But unfortunately, this cleanness at the end with the locking out is happening just a little too late in the delivery. Why is it happening too late? Well, because it starts too late. Why is it starting too late? Because the front knee can't get into it soon enough because the front knee is never stable when it needs to be. The knee is hitting, it's not stable, it's not stable, it's not stable, it's not stable. Boom, now it's hitting some stableness. So now once it's stable, it can lock out and send that energy up to be used in our throw. But the throw is so far into its procession already that the amount that we're going to be able to send up is not going to be as much as we could. So we're a guy that's leaving some velocity out there. And could we better achieve it with a better set position? I think we could, because that better set position could help us with a better leg lift, which could help us then with a better early momentum, which could then help us do everything that we already do here with the backside really well, and better timing, better spacing, with hopefully better influence to create more power through front foot strike. So I would say our main thing is just readdressing set position and then front knee rotation. All right, so you can see we got some rhythm with hands and leg lift. Trying to stay loose with it. We can also see you're a guy that leg, even though we have a good high leg lift, it comes up, it goes down, and our body has not gone anywhere yet. So now we're pretty much, we could have just put this foot down on the ground here, and we could have just picked it up to this spot, and we could then say if we was in the ground here, we picked it up, and from here we just stepped in through. We'd say you're playing catch, right? So you're very much just playing catch on a mound. We need to use this leg lift to create momentum, to create some early drive, to create some direction, to create some energy for us. And right now we're just standing still. And now with no momentum, all we're going to be able to use is how much energy you can drive off that backside leg into your front foot strike. And then how fast can you rotate your upper half is what you're going to be able to create on this mound. So we can see, because there was no momentum going and it's just a drive, by the time you start to want to drive that backside leg, this front side foot's already getting into the ground. So now the foot hits the ground, even more specifically, the inside part of the foot's hitting the ground. Then trying to get the full foot, but not even the backside heel's not even getting on the ground ever, really. Reason being is because we're still trying to drive at this point. Your inside part of your foot's hitting. Now we're trying to drive, and as we're driving, that's moving our body even more forward. But your body can't go more forward if the brakes are already on. And once that foot gets in the ground, that's the brakes. So we can't drive forward if we got the e-brake on. The only way we can keep driving forward through this big back toe, is if the brakes aren't on. So we can't have this foot being in the ground if we want to still drive forward. Well, how are we going to keep that foot from being in the ground so early? We're going to need to have our body starting to go forward before the foot gets so low to the ground. And your foot initially can be this far off the ground, which means your body will be able to go forward for a very long time before this foot would hit the ground if you started to go forward now. But we don't get our hips to go forward at all. We don't start to gain any ground to our target until about right now. Now we're going to start gaining ground, but look how close that foot is to the ground already. We don't have much time. We don't have much ability to keep this foot off the ground for the amount of time our body needs to complete this back foot's drive in time, which doesn't occur until here. But we can see, unfortunately, all this time that foot has been in the ground leading up to that. So we need to ultimately drive off our back leg. We need to drive into front foot strike. We need to drive off this back leg and then be hitting the ground. We need to drive off this back leg into the ground. But we can see we're getting front foot strike, then we're trying to drive. And that's not the order that we need to be doing that in. We need to drive the back foot into that front foot. So then when the shoulders start to rotate, they can take over and in fact use that lower body's energy to rotate and help continue to bring that backside through, specifically that backside hip through. But we can see because that front foot hit the ground early, front leg had no time to rotate. Not only did the backside not have time to drive, the front side did not have time to rotate. So now this entire time that we're trying to get that lower body into a position that we could throw, the upper body is rotating. And we can see, in fact, this never gets really into a position that we would call stable. And see, look how much extra, look at that heel going. Boom, boom. Our knee never gets stable until like right here. And we can see how much jiggle is in those bones there going through. Because of it. So we need to be thinking about our leg lift and getting the momentum going. We need to get hips going before the leg gets to the top to create momentum. We need to learn how to rotate this front leg at front foot strike. So then that way, when we get the momentum and we give the extra timing for the backside to drive, then at least hopefully by learning how to rotate the front leg as well, we'll have a more complete picture at front foot strike as opposed to being here at front foot strike. So a lot of learning how to move, rotate, drive our lower body and the timing required for those movements. And last but not least, so hopefully by this point in time, you've realized, holy smokes, my leg lift is pretty darn low. And we need to be getting that up. If for anything, for the reason you just heard explained about needing the time to be able to get through all of our lower body movements, it's going to be easier to do that if the leg's higher off the ground. As we proceed, though, we see how the foot is going from underneath the butt to kicking out. That's kind of just holding us a little bit in place. It's going to be hard for us to kind of want to really gain momentum during this kind of transition of foot here to foot here. So that may be slowing us up just a little bit. We'll be able to tell that better from the side view. But one thing we can see is the ball. Look how we can see the baseball here. This is going to be leading us to a potential wacky arm path. Because when the hand is in that position, it's going to allow the hand to get way back here. And now we're going to have a potential timing issue. But a lot of these things will be a lot easier to see and tell from the side view. But we can see that your front leg does a really good job of swiveling, rotating, opening up, getting into a good position at front foot strike where the hip, knee, we can really see the definition of that kneecap there, and foot are in a position where we should have a really good opportunity to stabilize this pretty quickly or instantly and start locking it out. We can also see that the upper body is in a pretty good position at front foot strike. The only thing that we can see is that the elbow is kind of outside the body, but the glove is not. We can kind of see this arch here, which is a sign that we kind of see in guys that throw pretty darn hard. But we want to just make sure that if we're in this position here, it's not because it was caused by something that happened earlier, and that it is instead something that we can use to our advantage. And we'll be able to tell that here momentarily. We can see that belt buckle, but we struggle to see that back hip a little bit. A little bit of that is because of the slight throwing across our body. So we can see our toe is just behind this little seam here. And then when we land in front foot strike, the foot is just on the slight other side of that. But the heel is even more so like 2 seams away. Which again is not an issue. We just got to make sure that this back hip can start coming through and can continue to come through. Otherwise, we're missing out on some of the power and drive that our backside creates for us. So if we continue going through, then we see here comes the back hip. And the back hip wants to keep coming through, and then it finally does. One thing we can notice that when you throw here, ball's out of the hand. Okay, we say it's okay, all good and gravy, but then watch how much more aggressive wham we get here. Look at all that. Okay, that is sweet. That is what should be coming out with our throw. So we need to be thinking ball out here. This is when ball's coming out of our hand, right here. Boom. Ball's coming out right here. Boom. Right here. Boom. Right here. Boom. So that way we say this ball that's up here right now is in your hand right now. All right. And then we just let play. Boom. We're saying that is a velo throw right there. Okay. So how are we going to be able to keep this ball in our hand longer, or be able to drive this energy out in front better with the ball still in our hand, so that way our throw isn't ball is starting to come out of our hand and it's just that, versus ball is coming out of my hand. The ball is in my hand right now, and now the ball is coming out. Boom. Yeah. Okay, so how are we going to be able to achieve keeping the ball in my glove longer? Well, one thing we need to think about is if it's way back here, boom, that's sweet. It's keeping it from wanting to be forward as soon as it would. But it's going to go very quickly from here, wham, to here. Because it was so far back that as soon as the shoulders start to rotate, it's going to start instantly pulling it with us. I think what we need to try to do is think about not having the ball be facing us, where now the pinky just goes up, 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 and now the hand starts to turn back around, and now we get up into this external position early, which then is going to kind of get us around the baseball. We can see our upper body just gets around the baseball a little bit, just a little bit around the baseball. So now if we're going around the baseball, that ball is going to sling out a little early. But if we were able to go through the baseball a little bit more, like your body does from this motion, from here on, we go through. That's big time through right there. But unfortunately, when the ball is being released, most of our energy is going around. Most of our energy is going around before we get to go through. So what we want to think about is when that ball is coming out of our hands, see how it is sitting right there? That ball, if the hand kept going down, that ball would be to first and the top of your hand would be to third. But somewhere in this area, we can see it rotate. So now the top of your hand is to second and the ball is to home. But as that ball comes out of the glove, boom, that ball wants to be to third, or I'm sorry, to first, and your top of your hand to third. But somewhere in here, it swivels to top of hand to second, ball to home. We want to think, keep this hand going down the way it is, so that the way the ball continues to stay to first, top of the hand continues to stay to third. Then the arm can do the same exact movements they are, but they will be naturally restricted a little bit more because the hand can't go back as far behind your body if you have that type of position. You can even do it right now and just have the top of your hand facing the same direction your chest is, your palm facing the same direction your back is, and move your arm in the direction you see it doing right now without letting the wrist change. And then get your hand the other way so that way your palm is facing home and your top of your hand is facing second, and let your arm go back in that same direction. And you should instantly see how much further your arm can get behind your back when your hand and your wrist is in this type of position. So we're not going to change your arm path at all. We're just changing how your hand separates and where your wrist is at as your ball falls out of your glove, and where your wrist stays at as you go through your arm path. That ultimately will help us with our timing, which will then help us keep the ball in our hand a little bit longer. So that way, instead of the ball being out of our hands here, the ball would instead be out of our hands now and have all of that power with the throw. So just timing with that, but the timing is going to be improved with how our hand falls out of our glove. Ball to first, top of your hand to third. Keep that wrist in that type of position with top of the hand to third, ball to first for as long as your arm is moving until it flips up to throw. That will fix the arm path. That will hopefully then also fix the timing that we need to achieve at the end to have more power in our fastball.